So today we're going to be taking a look at a scenario where there is a continent connecting South America and Africa. Now I did a video just like this one, except it was with North America and Europe, but now we're doing South America and Africa. And I think it actually has the potential to be a lot more interesting than the other video that we did. And one reason is because there are so many countries on the coast of Africa. We're going to be drawing this continent in this video. So make sure to stick around to see what that looks like, as well as what happens with it politically and what happens with it. And yeah, so if you do enjoy this mapping scenario, make sure to leave a like on it, subscribe to the channel if you're new, trying to hit 200,000 subscribers by the end of the year. And with all that said, let's go ahead and jump straight into the map making process. So I sort of have an idea of how I want this thing to look, but what you need to know is that it's going to be in this region of Africa, connecting these two regions because they are the closest. With the North America and Europe video, that continent had to be huge because these two continents are super far apart. But these guys are a lot closer together, making it a lot easier to detail, but also to make it look more realistic. Although a continent coming out of the ocean isn't too realistic, is it? On a geological timescale, yes, but not in our timescale. So we'll start at the border of French Guiana and start drawing this thing straight over. And if you know me, then you'll know that I'm not very good at drawing lines, which is surprising because it's kind of my job. And yeah, so I'll be doing my best, but there's no guarantee that this looks good. And there's also a chance that what I'm drawing right now isn't the final product, because I don't like how things look when they're not drawn right. Or maybe I should say realistic. But we're gonna be connecting this part of the continent up over here with Senegal. And there is our northern coast. I don't have any complaints about it because, well, we just now started. So there's our top line. Now I have an idea of what I wanna do down here. I think I want to have the continent start on this coast of Brazil and just kind of go off of it and then drooping down and then cutting straight back up. Now we go right into the center of the southern Atlantic. I guess this would actually be like the mid-Atlantic. We'll connect it up with this small island down here. I don't need to know the name of it because it's irrelevant. Do not get mad at me for not knowing the name of a tiny little island in the center of the Atlantic. I always say stuff like that, like don't get mad at me, but no one usually ever gets mad at me. I think I'm schizophrenic. The hate comments aren't real. Anyway, I just drew in the southern coast and honestly, I love how that looks. So we're going to actually be keeping this how it is and filling it in. So here is our new continent connecting up South America and Africa. Now I want to draw in a few islands because, you know, continents are incomplete without islands. And yeah, that's all the detailing that I'll be doing. So let's go ahead and start with the political, diplomatic, geopolitical, national, international affair part of this. There's a lot of names that you could use. The war part of it, you know, the part that you like the most, I think. I don't know, what part of my videos do you like the most? The war aspect or everything in between? Let me know in the comments. So before going any further, I do want to mention in the North America continent video, the UN got involved in that and kind of took over a bunch of it. I don't think I'm gonna be doing that in this video because I feel like it takes away from all the potential that comes from having so many countries on the Western African coast. Like, we could do some crazy stuff here. There could be a lot of wars over the land. So I think that would be a lot more interesting than having some big governmental body coming in and taking it all from people. That sounds oddly familiar. Also, I got some channel news for the end of the video, so do stick around for that as well. I mean, if you've made it this far already, I'm assuming you're gonna watch the rest of the video, so maybe I didn't have to say that. Who knows? Maybe I'm talking for no reason. Just like how I am now. So without the UN coming in to regulate this, like the big old mean corporation they want to be, we'll have these countries kind of go crazy. Now, realistically, this makes no sense. How did this continent appear out of nowhere? Blah, blah, blah. What do we do? No, that's all out the window. It's just colonizing time, baby. So France will be making the first move, moving out of French Guiana, which is their overseas department in South America, and colonizing the northern coast here. Of course, that will be added to their country, so we can erase the border line. And here is French Guiana, looking a lot more different. Now we go over to where the most interesting things will be happening, Africa. Now, Gambia is a very impoverished country. Not a lot happens there, unfortunately. So I think it would be fair for them to get an advantage in this video and just having them colonize first. Now, realistically, I don't think they would be able to colonize, but why not? And they will be expanding their borders all the way over to the coast, keeping up with their current trend of being pretty long. This will make Senegal very mad. However, they're not going to do anything just yet because, hey, you know, there's a northern coast you can take. But with Senegal taking that, the Gambia will restrict itself to only improving its longness. That sounds quite odd, but they will wrap themselves around this northern coast. And now we can see that they are trying to be the African version of Chile. I think it's fitting for Equatorial Guinea to go ahead and also expand in a very similar way. So we'll just bring them straight out. I mean, this looks horrible, but it's appropriate, right? Like that's fine. Next up, we have Gabon. I'm going to be bringing them down the coast over here and wrapping them around down here. So they are sticking to a strat of basically just taking this bay. You guys know my issue with bays and gulfs. Now, the stronger countries would likely pounce on this before the weaker ones could, but I feel like if they did, then these smaller countries wouldn't be able to get a lot of land. So instead of doing that, we'll give the smaller countries land first, like Benin and Togo, for example. They'll go ahead and move down, and they will claim themselves a very large amount of land. Once again, these are fairly impoverished countries with not a lot of, colonization capabilities. I mean, sure, it wouldn't be too hard to just, expand your land down south, but you might not have the resources to do such a thing. Another aspect of realism we're just throwing out the window. But hey, just because they get to go first doesn't necessarily mean that they're safe. Nigeria, mad that they weren't given an opportunity to expand their borders, are going to declare war on Togo and Benin at the same time. They will send their armies straight into these two new countries, including their new territory which it has gained, and will demolish them. Nigeria is the most populated country in Africa, right? Over Egypt, and will fully annex their territories into their own territory. So Nigeria expands their territory, but not in the way that we would think they would. Instead of going into the new territory, which was just south of them, they instead go into their neighbors and take over their land. But from here on out, we can kind of assume that Nigeria will be continuing to make their borders larger. So they will head down south and meet up with the border of Equatorial Guinea. They actually draft up a peace treaty with Cameroon, an agreement to essentially just, don't go to war over this new land. Instead, let's just sit down on a table and divide it up how we want to be divided up. This is the border that they agree on. Both countries are okay with this. So Cameroon gets all of this, and Nigeria will get the rest. See, look, civility always works. I'm sure there will be no future issues. But now I think it's time to expand Brazil. We don't have to worry about the smaller countries not getting land now, because Brazil is so far away at this point. But Brazil will obviously get a lot of land here. In fact, they will draw up their own treaty with themselves. How flashy, and take this much land, quite a bit. Now in the other video, I think America, they definitely had a lot of land, but Canada was also there taking land that they could have gotten. In this video, there's really no one to block Brazil from getting a ton of land. So unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, they'll be taking over around half of the new continent, leaving not so much land left, but still, these African countries have a lot of land they can still potentially take. For example, Guinea-Bissau, they'll move next, being kind of smart and just, bulging out, taking what could aid their country essentially. Or maybe the fact that they don't have an Atlantic coastline anymore is going to make a lot of countries collapse. I really don't know too much about the economics of Western Africa, but I assume that, or from what I know at least, that the ocean is fairly important for these guys, considering trade. So Senegal is kind of mad about this, understandably, but you snooze, you lose. So, yeah, they lost out on some potential land that they could have, some potential land that they could have had, but they can still expand, so don't cry about it. Don't be a loser. Senegal does get land. Next to move out is Liberia. They do a kind of similar thing to what Guinea-Bissau did, except they move a little bit larger down south, and they definitely go for a much bigger outline. This is like 3 times bigger than they already are, but that could be potentially beneficial to them if they use the land right. Next up, we have Guinea. Guinea will try to get to the coastline. They are a little bit more, not realistically, but they want to get to the coastline in this scenario. So they will go for a good old Gambia method and start becoming long. Meanwhile, Sierra Leone will just kind of bounce off of these two borders, making their country look something like this. Now we have 2 countries over here which haven't moved, and guess what? They will be moving. We have the Ivory Coast, and we have Ghana. The Ivory Coast will be first to move. They keep up with the similar trend of doubling your country or maybe even tripling it, whereas Ghana will take a much slower approach because there's a hostile country right next door, and you really don't want to make them mad because they will just straight up invade you, as we saw with Togo and Benin. So this is what the African countries have done thus far. Not too much, nothing too crazy, but hey, Europe's going to get involved now and make it crazy because Europe loves getting involved in things that have nothing to do with them. Isn't that right, the UK? They're going to take this northern island here and set up a colony along the northern coast, and obviously this has a lot of countries mad, like Brazil and all of the guys over here. They're like, hey, you stay on your own continent, and then the UK is like, wait, this isn't your continent, this is the new continent, and then they're like, no, not necessarily, and then it's just a whole back and forth thing. The Europeans aren't well liked in Africa, understandably. Now the DRC will be the next to make a move, surprisingly. They are going to take over this southern piece of land over here near Cameroon. Not entirely sure why they would want to do this, maybe for trade purposes, but they make a move. Why not? Now Cameroon will expand their colony around this colony in order to cut off the Democratic Congans. I need to get a dictionary out. Maybe not necessarily to spite them, but instead for their own future purposes, should they intend on expanding their own colony anymore. I just realized I called it Cameroon. This is not Cameroon. This is actually Gabon. I think I got it mixed up because it looks like it's one country. If I just got rid of that line, it looks like it's one country, especially because these two borders line up, but these are two separate countries. Anyway, Gambia will now reach over to the coast of the UK. Senegal gets even more mad about this, and then they get even more angry as we have Guinea-Bissau coming up and meeting up with Gambia's colony, cutting Senegal off from gaining any more land. Senegal's response to this? War. Now, Senegal is obviously stronger than both of these two countries, even combined, but there is one outside factor which will prevent them from total victory in this war, or I guess I should say winning this war before it's over. And that outside factor is Mauritania, who is going to join on the side of the other two blue countries in order to get some new land for themselves. Senegal is baffled by this, which sucks for them because now they're being invaded on two fronts, sort of. Let's go ahead and make that statement official. We have Guinea-Bissau pushing back and into Senegalian territory, and obviously from this, Senegal will lose this war. They're fighting two fronts, like I said earlier, and it's just Mauritania is way stronger. So quickly and fashionably, or unfashionably, Senegal falls over to the blue team, and we can go ahead and draw out this peace treaty, which completely deletes Senegal from existence and gets rid of any political issues which were occurring over here in West Africa. So zooming out now, we can see that this map is still not 100% filled in, but Brazil is going to go ahead and help us out with that, as they now create a treaty with the United Kingdom in order to divide up some of the remaining land in this continent. Now, the main reason that I want Brazil to expand this much is because there's just simply too much land for all of these countries to colonize. Now, I know I made that a focal point of the video. However, I guess kind of throwing back in some realism, I don't think these guys would be able to go too crazy. And plus, it's not like that Brazil is going to hold on to this land forever. As with the other video, we saw that a lot of the countries weren't able to hold on to their new land, and that's because it will either revolt or some other reason. While Brazil might be one of the largest countries in the world now, that doesn't necessarily mean that they will be by the end of the video. But as for what the UK gets, they essentially get all that remains in the northern part of this country, and that looks something like this. Now, it's also a possibility that the United States gets involved with this and just takes a bunch of land, but I think we'll leave them out for now and just allow for the rest of these countries to colonize the remainder of this land, of which they will actually make a treaty for. The land that they're going to be dividing up in question will be outlined like such. I said that without drawing the line in first. I'm stupid. But starting off with Guinea-Bissau, I think. These countries are becoming unrecognizable. They will be getting a large chunk of land next to Brazil and the UK, serving as sort of a shield for maybe Sierra Leone and Liberia. You can see like how slow I am in the head. Next up, we have Sierra Leone. They will also meet down with the border of Brazil, taking over this very large chunk of land. And with this development and a little bit of instability circling within these two countries, they will make the decision to go ahead and unite together into one large West African Union that looks something like this. Now, this union will be very appealing to some other countries, such as Gambia, and okay, this is Guinea, and then this is Guinea-Bissau. I said Guinea-Bissau earlier, but Guinea is what I meant. This union will become very tempting for other countries like Gambia and them. But for now, let's focus in on the rest of this unclaimed land. It will go pretty predictably, as you can see by what countries look in certain ways. These three slots will be filled in by these three respective countries. And now we're left with one big chunk of land down here. What should we do with this? Let's split it between Equatorial Guinea and the rest of Gabon. So that will go over to Equatorial Guinea, and this will go over to Gabon. And as soon as I zoom out, I'm assuming this is going to look horrible. Yeah, it looks pretty bad, but not out of the realm of possibility. And I say that because Africa has a lot of straight line borders in it. Thanks Europe for that. But it looks something like this. And yeah, this is what this new continent is looking like now. Now, you might be wondering about these two countries down here. They are going to be made, well, two countries. I just spoiled it, I guess. These two guys are going to be made into countries ran by the African Union, and not the one that just formed up here, but one that is the little African Union, which is like all 55 countries in Africa are made up into it. So yeah, that union. I'm not sure if it's built like that, but for this scenario it is. So now going back up north, I was talking about this earlier, but Gambia will be the first country to join in on the West African Union, the different union, the actual existing fabrical union. And shortly after, we have Guinea-Bissau making their way into it as well. So there we go. it looks great. It looks better. So that is the new continent completely filled in. Let's go ahead and take a look at the future of it, similar to what we did in the other continent video. We'll just zoom forward in time and see how exactly the borders of this thing change. I won't be showing any wars, but I will be showing the different lines changing. First off, we have the DRC spitting out their little thing over here, giving it full independence. Next up, we have Equatorial Guinea losing all of their land, unsurprisingly. Maybe not all of it. Maybe we'll give them like a little bit, but they would now look something like this. And this will become independent. Now we have Liberia losing about half of their colony. This could be due to multiple things, you know, stability issues, civil war, revolution. But now all three of these areas down here are independent nations, and eventually they will come together in unison to form a very large Southwestern African Union. Well, Southwestern from a specific point. This would technically be like mid-ish. But these guys unionize. In the future, we see Nigeria invade Ghana and successfully take over their whole colony. But in the south, we do see them release a vessel/puppet state that may or may not get its independence in the future. The UK's claim over here eventually gets its independence and immediately joins in on the West African Union, making it a fairly large country in comparison to others in the world. I just realized that I might have called... I think I called Ivory Coast Liberia. It's very confusing, okay? I'm sorry. But Ivory Coast is the one that loses half their country. Liberia is this one, and not good things are happening with Liberia. First of all, the government kind of crumbles and collapses in on itself, releasing the original Liberian state into 3 different countries. But as you can guess, that will affect the rest of their colony. And it also kind of shatters in its own interesting way. Technically, it divides up into 3 different countries, but this one will go ahead and join in with this big union over here. And it is quite possible that this one will join as well. But for the sake of interestingness, this one will instead be unionizing with this other piece of Liberia. And yeah, that does it for the African countries. As for Brazil, I think that, I mean, this isn't too sustainable. Maybe if they like force people to move out here, but realistically they would probably spit out about half of this and it would turn into something like that. So here is our final world map. The UK does still control all of these islands up here, but apart from that, I've assigned all of the land to different countries. So yeah, and now for the let's talk about the YouTube channel news thing. So college is getting close. It's getting closer. I think I start in late August, but as for the channel, I think it's going to be different, but what I plan on doing is I plan on, well, there's still a lot of things that I don't know regarding how they will work. I'll definitely be able to record while I'm there, but I might not be able to record on this computer, and I would have to do it on my laptop. So have no worry, the videos aren't going to, what do you want? So have no worry, the videos aren't going to stop happening. They just will be happening different in a different environment. The mic quality might be different. Camera quality will probably be different. It might be better because I think Mac cameras are probably better than this piece of junk, but it will be different. It will be slightly different, but the content, the maps will all still be the same. So yeah, I just thought I'd give you a little update on that so far. And yeah, so thanks for watching this video. If you did enjoy it, make sure to show support as always. All that stuff helps me out. Comments, I love to read your guys' comments. I've been getting more and more active with the comments, which I really wish I would have done that while we were like blowing up, but when we were blowing up, there were so many comments, it was insane. But we've kind of like slowed down now, and I'm able to respond to a lot more and interact a lot more with you guys, so that's cool. But yeah, I'll catch you guys in the next video. And of course, thank you to all the super fans. This includes Mr. Bonk7, Patrick Clauser, Switzerland Lowell Productions, German Edits, Georgie Badev, Kylie Speaks Plays, HammerToad45, Connor the Gamer, Poland Country Ball, Yakko, Nevada Garbage Trucks, and DW Cool Dude. Once again, thank you guys.